minute or two. All right. We're going to start in 2 minutes. 8 or 9, we're going to start. All right, peace and greetings. I want to welcome everybody to the show. Peace to all the gods and goddesses on the path doing the work. Before we begin, I don't know why this thing seems like it's stuck on something. Just give me 1 sec. There we go. Before we begin, just to run down a couple quick announcements. First and foremost, if you're not subscribed to the channel, subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell. You will get a notification anytime a new video is uploaded or anytime that I do a live video. Also hit the like button. The more likes the videos on the channel get, it expands out and reaches more people on the search engines on YouTube. So please remember to hit the like button. The channel is monetized. If you would like to donate to the channel, right below the chat, there is a money symbol. You can donate that way, or you can also go to PayPal and use the email in the description box, khnum19@gmail.com. Upcoming this month, I know a couple people, just to reiterate, no show Thursday. I have another, it's been very busy this last week or two, but I have another personal thing to do this Thursday night. So no show this Thursday evening. We'll be back next Thursday on regular Thursday. So we'll be back on Tuesday after this. I'll remind people again later and towards the end of the show. As far as for this month, I know some people have emailed me. We will not be doing a ritual for this month. We're taking a break this month like we did last year. But we will be doing something in December. Let me just make sure I give the correct date. I don't want to butcher this. Hold on one second. Let me pull up the calendar. I will be getting the flyer together for this. So on the 27th of December, which is the last Friday in December, we will be doing a ritual centered around Samael, the angel of death. It'll be working with various aspects of Samael, understanding the mysteries of life and death and how they're intertwined. I'll just kind of leave it at that. That ritual will be on Friday, December 27th, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I will be putting a flyer out for that within the next couple of days. If you would like to attend, you'd have to send me an email to request an invite. I am finishing up the curriculum for the winter session of classes, which will begin mid to late January. I'm trying to get that finished by this weekend. Again, it's just been extremely busy the last 2 weeks. I'm kind of behind on a bunch of shit that I'm doing. But that curriculum will be coming out. I do have a list, a mail list that I send, the information for the classes. If you're not on that list and you want to get that information, once I have it finished, send me an email. Just title the email class information, and I will save your email and just give me a few days to get back to you. And once that curriculum is done, which will run again mid to late January, 6 to 8 week session, they run 3-4 hours on Saturdays, and I can email that curriculum and the information on how to sign up, for that winter session of classes that will be starting in January. If you're interested in a spiritual consultation or a reading, that's kind of what's been keeping me extremely busy the last 2 weeks, jammed with that. Keeping pace with it, but that's what's kind of keeping me extremely busy. Send me an email, specify if you want a reading or a consultation, and put in there, please, the days and times you're available and the time zone that you live in. This way we can schedule a day and time that's convenient for myself and for you. And I'm usually pretty good within a 2 to 3 day frame of scheduling those readings or consultations. All right. Other than that, that's pretty much the main portion of the announcements. As you see, we've started to post a couple of snippets from the Conference of the Black Adept #2, Journey of the Black Adept. There will be more snippets to come. There's 2 videos that posted today. We have some more footage we'll be uploading just to kind of give you an idea, a little glimpse on how that event went. So we have the next year's date is set. October 26th to the 28th. That's 2020. So we want to, again, start pumping that out there like we did last year. We kept pumping it for almost close to an entire year. This way it gives people time to prepare, make travel arrangements, etc. So next year's conference will be Journey of the Black Adept Conference #3. It'll be our 3rd year doing this. As I said before, we're going to keep this always in the last month of October. Okay. And next year, it'll be October 26th to the 28th here in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. All right. If you need information on that, I know it's early, but I got the general information. As obviously, as we get closer to that next year, believe it or not, we're ready talking about it. More information on that to come. All right. So what I want to talk about tonight, you see the title, the Hermetica. Some of y'all are probably familiar with the Hermetica or the writings of the Hermetica. We're going to just give a brief, the origins of it. Some attributed to, a lot of it's attributed to Huti or Hermes, as the Greeks referred to him. Hermetica is a Greek word. We'll go through that. how it got into the hands of some of those Greek philosophers. We'll give a little history on it. And a lot of it is attributed to, again, the sacred wisdom of Tahuti. The Emerald Tablets, as we know, is a collection, part of those mystical Hermetic writings. I've talked about that many times before, but I'm going to go through a couple. I'm going to go through some of the stuff dealing with the Zodiac in there, the mysteries and the reincarnation of the soul, and I want to talk about the mysteries of death. Now, why I think there's a lot more in there. Obviously, we don't have time to focus on everything in there. Why I want to focus on that, because on some of the mystery schools of ancient Egypt, how it applies to us on our path, it applies in a very strong way. If, I want to make this clear, if you can utilize those teachings and connect it to the work that you're doing, connect it to the ritualistic work, the shadow work, it does connect, and it does play a strong part or a connection, but you have to be able to make that connection. We don't want to use it as a bunch of jargon where we have so many people quoting historical information, but they're just spewing information. But if it's not being utilized or applied, it's pointless. It's a lot of information that you're just storing up and reading. And let me throw this out there too. I didn't forget. I know I see Brother Angel in here. Some people in here from the Black Flame 11. We will have a call tomorrow night. I haven't got around to it. I meant to send that email out yesterday. I will get it out tomorrow. So I just want to put that out there tomorrow, 8:30. I know some of you are on or in here now. I believe I see Angel. I don't know if anybody else is in here. Let me go to the top. Okay, Alicia. Patra. Okay. If you guys could spread that word, I'm going to send that email out. If I don't get to it tonight, I will get it out tomorrow. We will have a brief call tomorrow, 8:30 p.m. in the evening. Seems that was the best agreed upon time. If you are in the tri-state area or in the surrounding areas in New York City and would like to get down with the Black Flame 11 and the work that we're doing, again, but let me make it clear, we're doing work. It's not a social club. It's not a hangout spot. It's a group of people that have come together and that have decided to regularly gather to do ritualistic work collectively and individually. So if you'd like to participate, send me an email. We can link you in. But again, if you're going to be a curious seeker and nosy and we see you're not participating and doing work, we're just going to have to ask you to leave. All right. So let me put that out there. I will try to get that email out when I get off. I'd rather try to get that out tonight. If not, I'll get it out in the morning. So again, if we can apply this information in the Hermetica and connect it to our path and the ritualistic work we're doing and the shadow work we're doing, then it's very beneficial. If you're just going to read it, and some of you may or may not be familiar with it, it's most should if you've studied. There's a lot of good information in there. But again, what we do on this path, especially dealing with mystical information or esoterical information, how can we apply this to what we're doing? So as we go through it, now it's going to vary from individual to individual, so it's not going to be the same for everybody. So we have to understand that. That's one thing with information and knowledge when we're on this path. You got to remember, it's a collective journey to an extent with others, but it's very individual in the sense because it's personalized. So you can't compare your experiences to other people's experiences. You can't compare or expect everybody to have your perception of how you perceive information and knowledge. That's going to vary from degree to degree. That's important to understand because moving forward, it helps you progress as you move, through your path, wherever that takes you. Okay. So I'm going to go through first just a brief history of the Hermetica. All right. For those who may not be familiar, I'm not going to stay on that too long because you can find this yourself. I am using a book, The Hermetica, The Lost Wisdom of the Pharoahs, by Tim Frecky and Peter Gandy. All right, you can get this on Scribd. I have it actually on Kindle. That's the name of the book right there. There's many copies of the Hermetica. This is just a suggestion. If you Google it, you're going to find many different translations. So I'm just going to show you that. That's the book, The Hermetica, The Lost Wisdom of the Pharaohs, Timothy Freck. or Freke, I don't know how you pronounce his last name, and Peter Gandy. But again, if you Google, you'll find, again, multiple translations. I found this one to be very simplified, but feel free to explore and do your research. All right. All right. So what we want to do again is go into some of the basic history. Okay. All right. The Hermetica is a collection of writings attributed to Thoth, which is another Greek term for Tahuti, a mythical ancient Egyptian sage whose wisdom is said to have transformed him into a god. Thoth, who was venerated in Egypt from at least 3000 BCE, is credited with the invention of sacred hieroglyphic writing, and his figure portrayed as a scribe with the head of the ibis and can be seen in many temples and tombs. I've always said on this path, a great deity to work with to enhance your knowledge and your wisdom and your understanding is Tahuti, right? You'll always see images of Tahuti depicted, holding the quill pen, and he's holding the pad as he represents that scribe. He represents that knowledge, that understanding. Now, as I said before, if you pay attention to photos that I put on the Instagram to promote the videos, I hope you caught the imagery in the photo that's on Instagram, right? If you understand who Tahuti is and what he's governed by, you'll see the picture that I put on the Instagram, and I chose that picture for a reason. I don't just pick pictures randomly because they look good. I pick them because there's symbols in them. And as I've mentioned before in previous videos, I hope you go look at those pictures. Even if it's previous videos, study them and look for the symbols in them and see the connection you can make with them. Well, the symbolism that's in that video, in that photo that I have on the Instagram of Tahuti, you will see the baboon holding the scribe or holding the scroll open as Tahuti is reading or writing. Now, again, what that represents is we know Tahuti is governed by lunar energies or the moon. And the baboon deity is synonymous with the moon when you do your research. So there's a connection there. It talks about many different aspects when you go into the ancient Egyptian mysteries of the baboon deity, which most people don't really understand that, which we'll get into a little of that. But that's the reason why I chose that picture. All right. He is the dispatcher of divine messages and recorder of all human deeds. In the great hall of judgment, the afterlife court of the god Osiris, Thoth would establish whether the deceased had acquired spiritual knowledge and purity and so deserved the place in the heavens. Tahuti was said to have revealed to the Egyptians all knowledge on astronomy, architecture, geometry, medicine, and religion, and was believed by the ancient Greeks to be the architect of the pyramids. All right. So these obviously are for the obvious reasons why this is a great archetype to work with to enhance your knowledge and your wisdom, because you see the vast areas that he represents as far as tying into knowledge or intellect, right? The Greeks, who were in awe of the knowledge and spirituality of the Egyptians, identified Thoth with their own god, Hermes. So this is the connection. How does the Hermetica come about? Why is Hermes always synonymous with Tahuti? Because the Greeks believed it was an incarnation of Tahuti when you do the research, right? Now, you'll find some of the later mystery schools that came later, such as the Rosicrucian order, based pretty much their whole foundation of their order on the Hermetic mysteries or the Hermetica of ancient Egypt. I'm telling you this from being an 11th degree Rosicrucian now. It's based on the higher principles of alchemy and the Egyptian mysteries, okay? And a lot of their information comes from this mystery school that it's talking about here. So they connected Tahuti with their god Hermes. They believed it was one and the same. Now, this is where you're going to see the connection of the wisdom of the Pharoahs with the Hermetica or the Hermetic writings that the Greeks believed was connected to Hermes, who they believed also was Tahuti or Thoth, right? The messenger of the gods and the guider of souls in the realm of the dead. To distinguish the Egyptian Hermes from their own, they gave him the title Trismegistus, meaning thrice great, to honor his sublime wisdom. The books attributed to him became collectively known as the Hermetica. Okay. So this is where we get that term from. This is where these collection of writings have their origin, right? Although largely unknown today, the writings attributed to Hermes thought have been immensely important in the history of Western thought. They profoundly influenced the Greeks, and through their rediscovery in the 15th century, Florence helped to inspire the Renaissance and gave birth to their own modern age. Now, I'm just going to finish with this last paragraph and stop with the history of it. I think you get the generalization. You can do this research in your own time. I don't want to stay on it too long. The list of people who have acknowledged the depth to the Hermetica reads like a who's who of the greatest philosophers and scientists and artists that the West has produced. So here's some of the key people in Western history that have been influenced by the Hermetica: Leonardo da Vinci, Diderot, Botticelli, Roger Bacon, Paracelsus, Thomas More, William Blake, Kepler, Copernic, Isaac Newton, Sir Walter Raleigh, Milton, Ben Jonson, Daniel Defoe, Shelley and his wife Mary, Victor Hugo, and one probably that we're very familiar with, who they consider the father of psychology, called Jung, who was heavily influenced by the Hermetica and the writings of the Hermetica, right? It even heavily influenced Shakespeare, John Donne, John Dee, and all the poet philosophers who surrounded the court of Queen Elizabeth I, as well as the founding scientists of the Royal Society in London. And even the leaders who inspired the Protestant Reformation in Europe. The list is endless, okay? You get the point, all right? The last section, the early history of the Hermetica, right? The early origins of the Hermetica are shrouded in mystery, but the evidence suggests it is a direct descendant of the ancient philosophy of the Egyptians. However, the handful of surviving works attributed to Hermes are not written in ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics, but in Greek, Latin, and Coptic. That's important to understand, because now we're talking about doesn't have its point of origin in the pre-dynastic Egyptians, but it has origins from the Hyksos dynasty on. And this becomes confusing to some when studying the ancient history of ancient Egypt, because, as I said before, the pre-dynastic Egyptians were those Nubans, or Nubians, as some refer to them as, that migrated from Nuba. Actually, if you look at it on the ancient maps, it actually was spelled N-U-B-A, not N-U-B-I-A. That's a term that came afterward. That's a poor translation. The original Nubians that came down and migrated from Aswan, Sudan, and what we know now as modern day Egypt. These were your pre-dynastic Egyptians, who actually come from the Neolithics, right? And this is important to understand. The Neolithics were your people. Some referred to them as the Pygmies, the Watusis. These were the people that occupied the Nile region prior to there being what we know as ancient Egyptian civilization, pyramids and all the grandeur and glory of Egypt, right? It starts there. Then you have those people who migrated in what we know as Aswan or Sudan, right? And as I said before, if you do your research, there's more pyramids in Sudan than there is in ancient Egypt. Most people don't know that, right? Then you have these people that migrated and what we know, again, came into what we know as ancient Egypt today. Now, you can see the influence from those people because, for an example, you take one of the deities, Bes, who was known as a pygmy dwarf type of deity. Bes is said to be the protector of women and children, right? You find the origin of Bes in Aswan or Sudan. That's not something you find after the pre-dynastic Egyptians. That was something that was brought in from Aswan into ancient Egypt. That's important to understand. You usually can find that connection in some of the correlations with the deities that they brought in. And then obviously we know as the Hyksos, who the Bible refers to, as they came into ancient Egypt and mixed with the original Egyptians, we produced what we see today. And then you have the influx of Islam. And as we know, Islam has pretty much infiltrated what we know as Egypt today. It's pretty much an Islamic state now. We're going to get a little bit into that. I'm trying to go through this history as quick as I can because I don't want to stay on it too long. But you guys can, read up on this in your own free time. All right. So they were collected in the city of Alexandria in Egypt during the 2nd and 3rd centuries. Here, the Hermetic philosophy helped inspire some of the greatest intellectual achievements of the ancient world. Alexandria was a great center of learning, surpassing even Athens. Its founder, Alexander the Great, had conquered and united Greece, Persia, and Egypt and India into one vast empire. Cultures that had grown up more or less independently were brought together, and there was no bigger melting pot than Alexandria. Into this new universal city poured men and women of every race and nation, Greek, Jews, Egyptians, Babylonians, Phoenicians, and even Buddhists from India associated together in relative peace. All right. I'm going to skip some of this. You get the point. The last section I want to go through as I move on, how it now connected Islam, right? A lot of the mystical teachings of Islam, Sufism and Islam come from the Hermetica, right? History shows that whatever the works of Hermes have been studied and venerated, civilization has flourished. Pagan scholars and sages fled to the newly emergent Arab culture, taking their knowledge and Hermetic writings with them. 200 years later, the Muslims created an empire whose learning and scientific achievements were unsurpassed. By the beginning of the 9th century, the first university was established in Baghdad called the House of Wisdom. Here, many pagan works were translated. The sciences that had reached such heights in Alexandria were significantly developed, and the ancient pagan spiritual wisdom was covertly studied and practiced. From its exalted position amongst the sacred scriptures of Egyptian spirituality, the Hermetica became the secret inspiration for an important undercurrent in Islamic philosophy. All right. So now we see it's branched out into Islam. And then, which I ain't going to get too much into it, then it obviously works its way into Europe. As I said earlier, it inspired people like Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, Botticelli, Raphael, etc. But again, you can do that research on your own time. But to show you the vast influence the Hermetica has had on people from all walks of life, different cultures, spiritual systems, philosophies, religions, you name it. So having said all that, and hopefully that brief connection with that gives you how versatile this information is and how you can use it. All right. Well, that's up to you how you can use it, I should say. Okay. So I want to focus on a couple of sections in here, and then we'll build on this. All right. I want to first go to death and immortality. The reason why I want to go to death and immortality is, as I've said multiple times before, okay, most of us are on a spiritual path, okay, most of us. And one of those reasons that have inspired us to seek knowledge, I don't care where you came from and where you're at now. You could have came from a religious background at first, be that one of the three major monotheistic religions, Islam, Christianity, or Judaism, and then migrated later. It could have been Buddhism, could have been Hermetic mysteries, it could have been Ifa, Santeria, Wicca, whatever the fuck it is. That's irrelevant. But one of the things that has always been at the foundation and motivated us, if you're honest with yourself, okay, is understanding this thing called death. And what is it? What is eternal life, right? The ancient Egyptians constantly talk about eternal life. Do we physically die? Do we continue to live on after we physically die? Okay? These are questions that we've asked ourselves. These are questions that motivated us to get into spirituality. These are the concepts that religions actually use to keep people suppressed out of fear, because they'll use this saying, look, be good, follow all the rules and regulations, and if you do and you die, you're going to go to this place called heaven, where you're going to be floating around on the clouds with little fat kids in diapers and all that other mythological bullshit and garbage, right? So it's used in a negative way when it comes to religion, because it's used to suppress you via fear. Most of us, I would assume, at some point came to the conclusion that that was a bunch of bullshit, and we started to seek knowledge in other places because we felt like whatever it was we were experiencing and going through, and some of it could have been as we were raised, the cultures and the traditions we were brought up in, we felt there was more. Hence, we've got to where we are now, right? And you'd also have to be honest with yourself that, and don't fool yourself, be real with yourself. You don't really know what happens to you after you die. Okay, I don't give a shit what you've heard, what lectures you've listened to, what books you've read, what ancient texts you've studied. They're all just theories. You can't really confirm it if you were real with yourself. I don't care if it's coming forth by day, the Tibetan Book of the Dead, the Bhagavad Gita. I don't care. I don't care what it is, right? These were just concepts and theories. I don't care if the opening of the mouth ceremony. Until you actually experience it in that moment, that's when you're going to come to the reality. Or until somebody comes back and can confirm that they died and came back and can tell you exactly word verbatim, detail for detail what happens, that's a different story, okay? So I don't care what philosophy you're holding on to, you really can't confirm it's real. Now, having said that, if you are doing your study, your ritualistic work, if you do have the ability to discipline yourself and astral travel and have OBEs or out of body experiences, you start to understand the mysteries of that existence. But it's personal, it's subjective. Now, I ain't going to sit here and waste my time and talk about my own personal experiences, because that would be a complete waste of time, because it's not a reality to those that haven't had those same experiences. So I don't do that. I don't get on video and talk about how I've connected with beings. You got a lot of people that do this shit because they're looking for followers and they're looking for people to go, ooh, that person's so heavy and deep. So I don't get on camera talking about I talked to Oshun or the great deity such and such communicated with me, or I was astral traveling the other night and blah, blah, blah. To me, that's people that are craving attention and they want you to co-sign on their personal experiences so they can start a following. I'm not doing that shit, okay? You need to have your own experiences for yourself so you can come to the realization of this for yourself. So I'm saying all that to say the only understanding you will get in getting your personal understanding, let me stress that, of the mysteries of life and death is through your ritualistic work, okay? And in your ritualistic work and your personal experiences, which is subjective for you, you will now come to the realization. So that's why I said in the beginning of the video, don't compare your knowledge and your understanding with the next person's. Why? Because they have been through a different set of experiences from their birth to the present moment that has shaped their reality, their existence, and their perception of that truth. And yours isn't going to be exactly the same. Now, will there be some similarities? Of course there will, to a certain degree, okay? To a certain degree, yes, will there be certain things you can connect with? Most definitely. I'm not talking about that. But what happens is when somebody comes along and says, this is exactly what happens at the time of death, right? Yeah, I understand. There's scientific things. Scientists have drawn conclusions when the breath leaves the body. Consciousness, there's theories. Scientifically said that consciousness continues to live on. I get all that. So I'm not talking about the basic science. We're talking about what's going to happen to each and every one of us on an individual basis, and how does that affect the collective? Okay, this is the point. You have to come to the understanding of that. I'm not saying, look, you can read books, you can seek wisdom from teachers and elders. That's fine. But what I'm saying is it's still up to you to come to that conclusion. And how you're going to get really the key answers to that, how you're going to get the key answers to that is through your work, through your meditations, through your astral travels, your ritualistic work, your invocations, your evocations, whatever type of work you do, your performative utterance work, if you're working Heka Egyptian black magic. Because when you're connecting with archetype and deity, when you're connecting to the power of the subjective, this is going to create the awareness and the understanding you need. So the problem is we still got people that want to be traditionalized, should I say. All right. And what I mean by traditionalized, they still want to follow a structure, a system, and an order of things. They still want to come up under something with somebody. They still want to be told what to do. They still want to be told this is the way to do it. Don't do this. Do that. This is the only way. And if you do it any other way, such and such, blah, 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 blah. because they still can't fathom the idea. They still struggle with the fact that the truth lies within them. The understanding, the key to unlock the door to that mystery is within themselves. And I don't want to just keep saying that to sound cliche, because you hear a lot of people say that the truth lies within, blah, blah, blah. But if you don't take the effort and the time to actually unlock it, it's pointless. It just sounds like a nice, heavy, deep catchphrase. All right. So I want to go into death and immortality real quick. I'm going to go through 3 sections in here, and then we'll dialogue. All right. In this chapter, Hermes explores the nature of death and the fate of the soul, which survives it. Pay attention to that. From mankind's perspective, time is a destroyer. And as I said before, from the moment you were birthed out of your mother's womb, you started to die. Don't get it twisted. This is not living. As we continue to get older, mature, and grow, we get closer to what we term on this realm death. See, people think that this is living. When you were birthed from the spiritual into the physical is when you begin to die to live again. I know that sounds a little confusing, but people don't understand that. Now, there's a lot of theories out there in mystic schools. We chose to come here. Maybe so. Can we 100% prove that? Absolutely not. There's other theories that say, when you look in some of the ancient texts, whether it's the book of Enoch, traces of it in the Bible, that some of us say that we are direct descendants of the 200 fallen angels. And this is how we got here, and we're working our way back. Can we prove that? Absolutely not. Nice theories. But if you can draw upon those theories, and if it's going to work to motivate you, do what you need to do. But I think the more important thing, that's just, to me, I don't want to say semantics, that's just theory and conjecture. I think the important thing is to get an understanding of it as a whole and how you can benefit and grow from it, and how it can be beneficial for you moving forward. Because we can get stuck back in the past debating philosophies and history because there's so many different perspectives on it. But at the end of the day, what point does it serve if we're not drawing any personal conclusions from it? That's the point. Now, there's a lot of these theories out there. Me personally, I don't give a shit which one you cling to. That's why I said in the beginning of the video, if you can use this information personally for your growth. If you believe, let me give you an example so there's no confusion here. If you believe, let's just say you're an individual, that you accept the concept that you are one of the direct descendants of the 200 fallen Nephilim or angels that were cast out and came down to the earth, and you're working your way up. You're ascending your way back up. If that's what you're going to use to motivate you to grow, because you feel you chose to come here to learn from your mistakes, this was your choice, then so be it. If that motivates you to do work and get an understanding of some of these hidden mysteries, power to you. See, I'm not focused on the concept that you're using, because if it's working for you and it's giving results, that's fine with me. I wouldn't even waste my time debating that. This is just a couple of the theories that's out there. But again, in my opinion, that's not the important thing we should be focusing on. To get a thorough understanding of that, you should be constructing rituals and work and meditations and visualizations around whatever it is you're trying to get an understanding. In this case, death and immortality. That's why I came to the conclusion at the end of December to do the ritual with the angel Samael, and that work will deal with the mysteries of life and death and how they're intertwined. Very important. All right. But let me continue. All right. Hold on. What did I do here? Skipped. Jeez. Hold on 1 second. Lost my space. Give me a second here. All right. All right. Through the process of time, we age and die. From a cosmic perspective, time is an endlessly repeating cycle. Remember, time just expands, it contracts. There's no such thing as linear time. It's an illusion, right? We just went through, a week or two ago, daylight savings time. What a crock of shit. You can't turn back the clock and just steal an hour. Where do you get it from? To show you that time just is, and to get an understanding of that, time is constantly expanding and contracting out into the universe and the multiverse. What do I mean by that? I always use the analogy of throwing a rock into a pond or a body of water. When that rock hits, from the center of that rock or pebble or stone, there'll be ripples that expand out. Well, that's kind of how time operates. It just is. Meaning what happened 10 years ago in your life is still expanding and contracting somewhere out in the universe, right? This is why they say there's a such thing as time travel, right? They've made movies on this shit. I'll get into that another time, but there's no such thing. Time is an illusion in the sense of how we calculate it. Like I said, you can't just turn the clock back and steal an hour. And then how to every 4 years you add another 24 hours, leap year in February. Where are you getting that from? Where does it, and then when you're eliminating it and it's not there for the other 3 years, where does it go? Okay. See, they fucked with us because remember, real time was calculated by the movement of the sun and the planets. In ancient Egypt, they used in the temple of Dendera, they used the solar calendar, right? Or the sundial, right? By the movement of the sun and the planets, right? The calendar we use here in the West, as we call it, the Gregorian calendar, which was actually named after Pope Gregory, is a calendar of confusion, right? It's something that came AD, after the death of Christ, or after the Christian era, right? So this is very confusing because when we're calculating time, okay, you can get thrown off in some of your historical data, all right? So time is constantly expanding and contracting. Understand that, right? This is an important thing to grasp in understanding this thing called life and death. Because, like I said before, what if your existence isn't quite what you thought it was or is impactful? What if when you died and the lights go out, that's it, it's over? Do you really know that? You don't. Be honest with yourself. So then the question comes in, this thing called time, really, what is it and how does it connect or lack up? As I said, another confusing and fuckery thing, right? We have a thing called analog and digital time, right? Now, if you remember what used to be big before all these digital clocks and all these gadgets and analog and all this other shit, remember they used to use basically the secondhand clock to tell time. And I've talked about this before, okay? When we look at a secondhand clock, and I always remember this in school, secondhand clocks were big when I was in elementary, junior, and high school. You would always see the second hand. Notice they call it a second hand. It should be called a first hand, and I'll explain. And it goes tick. There's a pause now, tock. So there's time not being recorded between the tick and the tock. So who's calculating that pause? Because there's a pause. Look at a second-hand clock and watch the second hand move, just so we're not confused. I hope everybody's paying attention. The second hand goes tick, pause, tock, tick, tock, right? There's a space. And then they lie to you and tell you there's 60 seconds in a minute when really there's 120. Pay attention to that. 1 and 2 is 3, right? You're going to see the fuckery with the numbers and the games that they play on you. Then they tell you there's 60 minutes in an hour, correct? Then they tell you there's 24 hours in a day, still dealing with the number 6 and 3, 2 and 4 is 6, right? Then they tell you there's how many days in a year, depending on if it's leap year or if it's not. Then they tell you there's 31 days in some months, 30 in others, 28, 29. The numbers are all off. They don't match up. But the key that you want to pay attention to is the 6 and the 3. But between the tick and the tock, it's not being calculated. We got 120, right? And it should be recording firsts, not seconds. They call it seconds intentionally to throw you off because in between that tick and the tock is what we know in mysticism and the esoteric world as the spiritual realm. And I'm just using metaphors. This is where spirits, demons, gods, God, whatever you want to call it, on the subjective reside or dwell, okay? This is where you connect spiritually on the astral plane. Now remember, the astral is just the doorway or the entranceway to a multitude of planes. It's funny how people talk about spirituality as if when they obtain astral travel or OBE, out-of-body experiences, as if that's the tell-all, you're done. No, that's just the doorway. That's just the gate opener. I'm saying this because this is all connected to death and immortality. Now, when you're vibrating now you got to also go back into your 7 Hermetic principles of Tahuti, right? And I love the Hermetic people that are always pumping up this mat shit. Ma'at. It's about ma'at. You must have ma'at. Ma'at this, ma'at that, ma'at, my ass. I'm going to tell you, it's my ass. Okay? The reason why I say that is because in order to understand ma'at, okay, as they say, balancement, I like to say harmony, which deals with the objective, you must have an understanding of the subjective, which is the 7 Hermetic principles. They're tied in, they're connected, okay? So there must be a thorough understanding of both in order for one to understand the other, vice versa. You can't just start there and disregard what was there prior to it, because there's a disconnect, all right? All right, let me get through the rest of this. While the things of Earth are always changing, the orbits of the stars always remain the same. Hermes asks, could something as impermanent and transitory as our earthly existence be regarded as anything other than illusion? Question mark. Yes, this illusion arises from an underlying permanent reality. The discovery of the permanent within the impermanent is the reward of the spiritual quest. All right, so let me address that real quick. So you have a lot of these people that love to say this world is an illusion. I talk about this all the time. It's not real. It's just a dream. I'm controlling it. Great. That sounds cool. Heavy, deep. Well, how do you know that this dream or an illusion that you're not in somebody else's dream and it's not you that's controlling the illusion? How do you know you're not experiencing this dream via somebody else's illusions or dreams? Now, you might say, I know, but in essence, you really don't. Or is it all connected? Because if I'm connected to you, you're connected to me, there's something going on here. So it's a little deeper than an illusion. It's an illusion in the sense that there's more to it. It doesn't appear to be as it seems, but let's be careful of how we put this into perspective, because some people go to Spookville with it, right? All right. Hermes teaches that we must accept the inevitable transitory nature of all things. Everything is in a process of being born and then dying. The old must pass away so that the new can come into existence. New shoots are born from the decaying remains of old vegetation, and these new shoots will in turn eventually decay and die. He teaches, however, that a human birth is not the beginning of a soul, only of its incarnation. We just talked about that, right? Because when you incarnate here physically on this realm, physically, and you become immortal, you actually become less of who you are in essence. You go from becoming a spiritual being into a physical being, but still retaining that spiritual nature if you're able to remember, connect, and tap in. This is what it means when it says you're divine by nature. The mysteries of God lie within you. You were a God that was birthed into this universe, or a goddess. You just forgot. So some of us got here, and not by our fault, because our parents and their parents' parents and parents' parents and so forth and so on were indoctrinated with a lot of these religions that were forced upon us when we came into the world and became of age. We were told to accept some of these faith-based philosophies that are comical when we look at them as adults now. Okay? All right. Death is simply the end of this particular person and the soul's transformation into another state. Death is just the discarding of a worn-out body. Most people are ignorant of this fact and therefore needlessly fear death. After leaving the body at death, the individual soul is judged, this is according to the Hermetica now, I want to make that clear, by the chief of gods to see if it is pure and honorable. Pure souls are assigned to a heavenly realm. Ignorant souls fall once again into the material realms and are reincarnated. Now, I want to stop here. Can we substantiate this as 100% fact? No. So how can we apply this and utilize something like that on our path? Well, I would just simply utilize this if I'm using this wisdom of Tahuti or thought. I would utilize this to utilize the time you're here to prepare yourself to obtain the highest levels of spiritual knowledge and wisdom you can obtain. So as you get closer to this thing that people label death, you're more prepared. Fear is removed. You get a hidden, deeper meaning and understanding of the mysteries. That's what working with the telepathic realm is all about. That's what going to the dark, working in the night side or the dark side is all about. That's what's going into the abyss and the primordial chaos is all about. That's what tapping into the shadow self is all about. Understanding what the darkness is, because all things emerge from that Leviathan, that principle of continuity and existence. And out of that was that supreme darkness, as it's called in some of the ancient texts. And from that emerged the primordial chaos, or the chaotic energy that gives existence and life to everything in the universe is, and multiverse is, right? And out of that primordial chaos, all things manifest. And you can refer to the story of Tiamat. You can refer to the story of how Murdoch slew Tiamat and she gave birth to this is all symbolic to show you how things were put in place and how symbolically what they represent and how we connect with them within. Okay. So this is how one gets the understanding. It's an inward journey out, not an outward journey in. Don't get it twisted. So any system you're in that's starting externally, teaching you to look somewhere out there for the hidden answer to these things, to look somewhere out there, deep out into space and up into the skies for some mystery God that's not there. This is what causes the confusion. Okay. All right. After leaving the body we went through this. Pure souls or something. We went ignorant souls fall once again into the material realms and reincarnated. The soul, which during its earthly life has come to know God, will have become all mind. Notice it says all mind. What's the first Hermetic principle of Tahuti? All is mental. Mental is all. The universe is mental. So again, when you become all mind, pure mental, pure intellect, you're vibrating at the most possible, highest frequency you have the capabilities of. This is what it means. All things have its point of origin, start in the mind. It starts in the mind, the mental. So you must look for it there. You must unlock it here, which connects to here, which is another story. Not out there, not by groveling in front of some statue, not by saying some prayers to some external deity somewhere out there that's not listening or being heard. Trust me when I tell you, even if you do belong to one of those faiths, what's answering them prayers is your energy and your firm conviction in that belief. You might think it's some spook god doing it, and that's fine, but it's not. It's your power that's actually doing it. All right. When it leaves the body, it takes on a body of light, and it is free from all limitations, such as enlightened soul has recognized that its essential nature is godlike, and on death, it communicates or communes with God. It has run the race of purity and is now completely spiritual and divine. Such a soul has become of God. All right. Now, that's the introduction to it. Now I'm going to go ahead and read. You could actually read that on your own, just for the sake of time. What time we got? 9 o'clock. All right. All right. So that's a little bit on death and immortality. The next thing I want to go to, all right, the Zodiac and destiny, right? A lot of people are into astrology, the Zodiac. What does it all mean? Now, I want to stress this. And I want to make sure we're clear on this. Be careful. It's great to do your birth chart, your natal chart, and all that stuff, but that does not define, or that does not confound you to that specific destiny only. Some people use that as the tell-all, as if you don't have no choice. You do have a choice. That shows the characteristics and the energy that you're working with. But when you start to accept that as your ultimate reality, you do yourself a disservice. Remember, a god or a goddess is always in control of their destiny when it comes to things of that nature. So I don't ever recommend, nor do I ever use astrology as the tell-all, be-all, as if there's no options to change some of those the destiny that lies, let's say, in your natal chart. You're not confounded to that. contrary to what you may believe, contrary to what you may have been told, contrary to certain schools of thought and astrology and people that practice it will tell you. Because we understand on this path, we are the gods and goddesses in control. Now, we can use the astrological information in the zodiac to get a good understanding of our nature, our characteristics, and again, the energy we walk with, because that in that point will be accurate and you will see the connection, and that's fine. But there are some people that take it as religious law, almost biblical, like Christians do. I don't recommend you do that, because then you put your fate and your destiny again outside of your own hands. You don't become the sole governor and controller of your spirituality anymore. So let's talk a little bit about the zodiac and destiny. Can we control destiny? We can pretty much control everything except at the point, this mystery called death and immortality. Because death is going to come when death is supposed to come. But can you control the choices you make? Most definitely. Can you control your career, your money, your finances, your family, who you choose as your spouse? You can control all those things. Ain't no astrological chart going to tell me that I have no control over those things. Ain't no astrological chart going to tell me I can't change my patterns, my behaviors, my characteristics. There's only one thing that you cannot have complete control over. You can be cautious and become aware of what we're calling this thing death. Yeah. But can you fully prevent that? Absolutely not. That's the only thing you don't have complete control over. You have some control over, okay? So the zodiac and destiny, okay? In this chapter, Hermes explains the power of the zodiac that controls the fate of men and possibility of becoming free from its limiting constraints. God created humans to appreciate the awesome wonder of the universe. See this hit. To be themselves a beautiful embellishment of the cosmos and to share in God's creative powers and participate in the work of creation. The heavenly gods, the planets, who had already bestowed on man some of their own power, now urge the creator to be cautious. They fear that man will use the inquisitive mind for destructive as well as constructive purposes. Man's powers, they complain, are too great and unlimited and therefore dangerous to himself and the order of the cosmos. God responds to their concerns by creating the zodiac. This celestial mechanism will control the fate of men and be ruled by the goddess Destiny. She sows the seed of a person's fates, which grow and develop under the constraints of necessity, the limits and demands of physical nature, to shape every human life. It is a man's lot to live the life prescribed to him, for him by his fate. Very few human beings are capable of escaping from the determinant influence of the zodiac. Notice it says determining influence, not the tell-all be-all. Some people can't escape from it because they take it almost as biblical law. All right. Man's earthly life is controlled by the power of destiny through the physical limitations of the mortal human body. However, if man's mind is illuminated by the light of God, he becomes free from the celestial influences. So if you have knowledge of self, if you have the wisdom and the understanding, that has no binding or power or control over you, only if you allow it. And that applies to a multitude of facets in spirituality. All right. So that confirms what I was just talking about. For even the gods are powerless before God. Hermes teaches that it is our duty not to simply acquiesce our fate, but rather through intense contemplation of God, to rise above our merely mortal nature and awaken our mortal soul. Let me read this actual section on the zodiac and destiny. And then I have one more before I finish up. I'm going to go into the zodiac and destiny. When the creator had created this beautifully ordered universe, he wanted to order the world also. So he sent down man, a mortal creature made in the image of an immortal being, to be an embellishment of the divine body of the cosmos. It's man's function to complete the work of Atum. He was made to view the universe with awe and wonder and to come to know its maker. At first, the heavenly gods complained, saying, now mind you, this is theology, keep that in mind. You're being rash in creating humanity. They see with inquisitive eyes and hear that they have no right to hear. They reach out with audacious hands. They will dig up the root of the plants and investigate the properties of stones. They will dissect the lower animals and one another also. They will seek to discover how it is they are alive and what is hidden within. They will cut down the woods of their native land and sail across the sea to see what lies there. They will dig mines and search the utmost depths of the earth. All this might be bearable. They will do much more. They will press on to explore the world above, seek by observation to discover the laws that govern the movements of the heavens. Atum replied, I will build the Zodiac, a secret mechanism in the stars, linked to unerring and inevitable fate. The lives of men from birth to final destruction shall be controlled by the hidden workings of this mechanism. And when the mechanism began to work, the keen-eyed goddess Destiny, now catch the symbolism, supervising checked its movements through this mechanism. Destiny and necessity are cemented together. Destiny sows the seeds. Necessity compels the results. In the wake of destiny and necessity comes order, the interweaving of events in time. Last section. Atum implants each human soul and flesh by means of the gods who circle in heaven. It is man's lot to live his life according to the fate determined for him. By these circling celestial powers and then to pass away and be resolved into the elements, there are some whose name will live on through the memorials of their mighty handiwork, but the names of many will fade into darkness. What that basically means is, can you leave here saying you have left your mark on this life, on this world? Do you feel like you've left something so impactful that if you left right now, that you would never be forgotten, or will you fade into the darkness too? Ask yourself that question. And if you feel you're not at that point yet, then that should motivate you and confirm that there's more work to do. I don't think there's a lot of us that can say if we left right now, we've left an impactful, some can, such an impact on this life or world that we'd be gone for years later down the road and we still wouldn't be forgotten. There are people, think of all the great people in history that have, right? Malcolm X, whether you like him or not, right? Good and bad. Hitler, bad in a sense, probably most people don't perceive because what he did was atrocities, right? Think of all these impactful people. Whether you determine them being right, wrong, good, or bad, but they left an impact. Now ask yourself, what mark or impact are you leaving? This deals with fate and destiny. So if you're going to use the zodiac and the celestial bodies as the sole determining factor of your fate, remember, as it said here, once you connect with the God mind, you control that. You're not subjected to that no more. All right. Few can escape their fate or guard against the terrible influence of the zodiac. Notice it said few. For the stars are instruments of destiny, which brings all things to pass in the world of men. If, however, the rational part of man's soul is illuminated by a single ray of Atum's light. Okay? The workings of these gods is as nothing, for all gods are powerless before the supreme light. But such men are few. Now, who's this God? Now, you could read this text and think it's some spook God, or as they're referring to here as Atum. You're the God it's talking about. That's speaking to us on this path. Who is the one that allows the control to take place or not? It's you. If you really accept the fact that you really practice this path, and you accept the fact that you are the sole governor and ruler of your spirituality, you are the God of your destiny, you're the one that's in control. Now, if you're not on this path, you can't connect to that concept. So if you're still in a frame of thought where you think there's some external deity that's controlling this, then you're still religious. You're still monotheistic by nature. And that's fine. That's your business. We don't deal with that bullshit on this path. That's spookism. That's philosophy. That's faith. And that's dogma. Okay? Remember I said in the beginning of the video, how can we utilize this text and apply it to the work we do? Well, you are the Atum spoken of in this text. Stop attributing it when you're hearing Atum
Don't let your mind go spook, because as I told you, a lot of people that study Kemetic information read this, and this is why I'll hear people in the Kemetic community say, Atum, the Most High. Because they read this text with a monotheistic mindset. Oh, this is the Most High God, Atum, right? Now we're back to biblical and religious mentality, religious way of thinking when we're using terms as the Most High God, right? I'm trying to get you to see you're the Atum in this story. This is you, right? And as I said, nothing has power or ability, and everything is subservient to God, even the gods, right? Remember I said you work the archetype of the gods. The gods work for you because they unlock portions of your psyche. They're characteristics that are in your DNA. They're part of your psyche. They're part of your characteristics and your personality. So you, the chief god, control the gods and the goddesses. This is what this is telling you here. When you apply it, how we utilize it on this path. I couldn't give a fuck how anybody else uses it. I couldn't even give two shits if people agree with that or not. I know it works because I utilize it in that fashion. And I know there's others out there that utilize it the same way, and it works very efficient for them. And they got the results, okay, to confirm that and back that up, all right? And the last few sentences, okay? Remember, for all the gods are powers before the supreme light, but such men are few. More are led and driven by the gods, which govern earthly life, using our bodies as the instruments of destiny. These are the people that worship shit. These are the people that look at the Orishi and worship them. They worship Shango. They worship Obatala. They worship Yemaya Oshun. They worship Tahuti, Osiris, Amun-Ra. This is what this is talking about. These are the ones that are controlled by the gods through their earthly life and their bodies, because they're stuck in a system of worship, faith, system, and belief. They don't understand their true power. You understand? Okay? So they go into a comfort zone. Shango, you know, I got to do this offering for Shango. If I don't do it, he's going to be mad at me. Get the fuck out of here with that dumb shit. That's spookism. I left the apples out for Shango. Look, they've been out for 4 days. He's eating them. They're rotten. Look, they're decaying. Listen, people, I said this a million times. I'm going to say it again. If you leave an apple, a banana, or any fruit out on your counter for an X amount of days, what's going to happen to it, people? It's going to start to rot and decay. Don't get spooky and say Shango's eating the bananas and Shango's eating apples. See, that's the immaturity and ignorance of the human mind. As it says here, these are the people that are being controlled by the gods, right? And they're using their bodies as instruments of destiny, good and bad. There's a flip side to that, right? To my way of thinking, however, it is not our duty not simply to acquire in our human state, but through intense contemplation of divine things to detach ourselves from our merely mortal nature. So we got to let all that mortal shit go, okay? This is what it's talking about. Until we let that stuff go, and we don't, as it says here, we don't contemplate these divine things from within, and we don't detach ourselves from our merely mortal nature, we will continue to be fooled by the conscious hustlers, the conscious pimps, the people that are using spirituality to hustle people. That's why I did them videos a while back. Stop looking to follow motherfuckers. Stop kissing people's asses. Stop bowing down to people. Stop being subservient to motherfuckers. A real god or goddess bows down to nothing or nobody. I don't bow down to fucking nobody. I don't care who you are. I'll give you your respect as long as you have earned that respect. Show me respect, I show you respect. I ain't sucking nobody's ass. I ain't bowing down to nobody. I ain't kissing nobody's ass. None of that shit. Because I know the only person that can do something for me is myself. So I'm not interested in that shit. People got to stop wanting to follow motherfuckers, become part of these clubs and organizations that tell you if you join, pay the fucking membership fee, get the card, you're in the club, you got salvation. Fuck all that shit. It's not going to work. Trust me when I tell you, you're fooling yourself. Okay? Till we let that go, things won't change. All right. The last thing I want to get into, I want to keep this within a 2-hour time frame. All right, hold on. So that was dealing with the Zodiac and destiny. So there's 3 sections I want to cover. I might revisit this another time, because there's a lot of good stuff in here. I just want these 3 things, though, really stood out to me, and I wanted to really touch on them. All right, so the last thing I want to go into is incarnation. Was that it? Yeah, incarnation and the soul. Was that it? Hold on. Yeah, that was it. All right. This is we got to be careful in talking about this too, because this is a hot topic. What is incarnation? Right? Now, we have also something called reincarnation. So I'll make sure we're not confusing the two. Reincarnation, that is a discussion in itself. Okay? Hold on one sec. All right. So we're talking about incarnation. Can spirits incarnate into human beings? Can you connect with energies? Now, some call this spirit possession. We've talked a little bit about this. So I'm going to elaborate a little bit on this now. Then we'll go through it. First, let me read this short section, the last thing I want to read out of the Hermetica. In this chapter, Hermes reveals how souls incarnate into physical bodies. All souls share the same essential nature. They are neither male or female, as such differentiating characteristics exist only in the body. All souls are a part of the one soul of the cosmos, right? So there's a collectiveness to this, right? When you study the doctrine of gender in the 7 Hermetic principle, and you go outside of the physical, it talks about the different planes and how they're governed by masculine or feminine energy. So what we understand as the masculine and feminine on the spiritual is not what we correlate to masculine or male and female on the physical. It's different things, okay? This is important to understand, right? All right. God has 2 servants which look after souls. The keeper of souls cares for disembodied souls. Now remember, this is theology. And the conductor of souls sends them down into physical incarnation. Nature creates the individual body into which a soul incarnates. The power that Hermes calls memory ensures that this body conforms to the universal form of the human species. The power Hermes calls skill makes sure that each individual body is a fitting, I want to stop here for a second, a fitting home for a particular soul it houses. How does this connect to our work on this path? Well, it connects in a very strong way. When we talk about invoking spirits and connecting their energy or possession from these spirits, we must first make ourselves a fitting vessel, a fitting tool to be receptive to receive that energy. And so this doesn't just happen randomly. It only can happen to those who have prepared themselves. First, it starts mentally within the psyche. Okay. All right. These boys are coming back. It starts within the psyche, right? Because when we talk about spirit possession, or as they say in some traditions like Ifa being mounted by a spirit, what does that mean? What it basically means is when you unlock that portion of the psyche that's connected to that energy, I don't care what it is, a goddess, whatever it might be, you start to embody and become literally what that spirit or god or goddess represents, whatever it is, if it's a spirit, a god, a goddess, whatever it might be. And this gives the impression of what one terms spirit possession. You start acting like the spirit. You start having an awareness, knowing things that only something of a higher intellect could know. You start knowing things about people that might be present that they get dumbfounded. How can you know that? Because you're now completely engulfed, or you are now being used as a vessel or a tool for the spirit. That comes through discipline and work. That comes again through your spiritual work, your ritualistic training, your shadow work, all of those things. It comes from all of those things. Okay. The awareness of it. Okay. Look, this is not gonna. This is why people who, and again, I say this in generalization. This is why people who are not doing work consistently struggle in this department. The communication with this aspect of spirit, or working with this aspect of spirit. Okay, because there's so many things, blockages, usually via by not doing shadow work on a consistent level. Now, as I said this before, bottom line is this. Okay. Most people, okay, that don't, well, even if you're doing ritualistic work, let me say this and back up. In every type of work on this path, there is some connection to shadow work, because shadow work in short terms is basically getting to the true essence, the real you. All your ritualistic work in essence is designed around that in some shape, form, or fashion. So the core element of shadow work is always there. Whether you're specifically setting out to do it or whether it's ritualistic work geared for a specific purpose, you best believe at the core, there's still some inner awareness that's connected to that. So in order to become a vessel for these energies, when it comes to this particular of physical bodies being used for incarnations of some of these energies, one has to, there's preparation for that, okay? So this can't happen to somebody whose mind is not prepared, right? Because it's mental. And when we say prepared, right? When we say go into the darkness, right? We say go into the darkness to do the work of the light, right? The light simply on this path is the intellect, right? This is what the alchemical mystics meant when they said, you must go into the darkness to do the work of the light. The light shines in the darkness comprehendeth it not, right? That biblical quote means something completely different to a Mason that's traveling the path. That light that shines in the darkness is the intellect. Yeah, I know theologians and Christians will tell you it's Jesus, but that's theory, okay? When you go look at the text, you know, it has a whole different meaning, but that's neither here or there. Anyway, let me finish this, and then this will be the last section, and then I'll go through the chat and I'll go through some of the dialogue and the questions and the comments. All right. Okay. Our individual characteristics are governed by the qualities of the gods presiding over the moment of our incarnation. If the gods were present at our birth that are peaceful, we will be peaceful by nature. If they are warlike, we will be aggressive. Now, this will determine some of the energies that walk with you. This is something that's important to understand in your birth chart and the astrological, you know, your sign when you were birthed into the universe. There are certain energies that walk with you naturally by nature that can be utilized. That information should be utilized so you can understand your nature, your personality, your characteristics, your behavior, right? And then you could take correct action of what needs improvement or what you can continue to enhance, right? And this is what will give you an understanding too of what energies you more are acclimated with naturally that walk with you and vice versa, that don't. Because you might like something, but it may not just be something you're connected to energy-wise, okay? Doesn't mean you can't, but it just means maybe that's not a particular area you should be focusing on, okay? All right, hold on. Sorry, this game getting good over here. All right. All right, so if they were warlike, they will be aggressive. This is why astrologers say, for example, that those born at the time of Aries have certain characteristics, while those born at the time of Capricorn have a different nature. The gods who accompany the soul at the moment of birth affect the instrumental nature, instinctual nature of the soul. Those that have their effect later in adolescence affect the rational part of the soul. So does this change as you mature and get older? Most definitely. That's important to understand. Before it incarnates, the soul is already wrapped in a spiritual body. When this wrapping is thin and clear, the soul is intelligent. However, when this wrapping is dense and opaque and the soul has limited vision and is only aware of an immediate situation, as a soul sinks into incarnation, it forgets its own nature and takes on the qualities of the gods. This is when one can become fully immersed or possessed in the spirit. what you know as self, you're not conscious of your mundane self. Okay. Now it's hard to explain this in words because it's an experience. So I don't want to get too much into that. Those that have had that experience can connect. Though if you've never had that experience, what I'm saying is probably pointless because it's not going to make any sense to you. All right. A soul sinks into incarnation. It forgets its own nature and takes on the quality of gods who have shut it into a human body. Hermes describes a vision of disembodied souls about to take their journey into the physical form. They are filled with fear and horror at the fate which awaits them. They cannot bear the prospect of such imprisonment. Now, disembodied souls, that gets into a whole nother thing. I'm going to stop there because I don't want to get into that. That's going to take on a whole nother context. That's pretty much what I had for you. Give me a minute. I'm going to just get a drink of water, and then I will go through the chat, look at some of your questions and your comments. Hopefully you have some questions and comments based on this. Just give me 1 minute. I will be right back. All right. So I'm going to go to the top of the chat. I hope you guys have some questions. Again, that was the, we were going through, there's a whole bunch. There's so much stuff in that I didn't go through. I'll probably revisit that again down the road. But I wanted to show simply how we can take the wisdom of the Pharaohs and really apply it on this path, because it is important if we know how to really utilize it. All right. So I'm going to go to the top. Okay. I'm going to start from the beginning. So if you just recently typed in, I'm going in order. Be patient. I'll try to get to, if hopefully time permitting, I can get to everybody. So peace and greetings to everybody. If I didn't greet you personally, Alicia, if you're still here, I just saw your text. I know you sent it earlier. I'll reply to you when I get off. I hadn't looked at my phone, been hours. But I just saw that you sent a text earlier. I will reply back to you when we get off. All right. So peace and greeting, Elder Angel. Peace to Elder Angel. Oh, all right. James Gordon from Ottawa, Ontario, checking in. Well, greetings, James. Appreciate you tuning in from Ottawa. All right. Oh, Cyber Soul getting married tomorrow. Congratulations. Good for you. Hopefully that works out for you. And the best of luck to you. Well, no, we don't need luck. Make it work for you. All right. All right. So I'm just going to look for questions or comments. What's going on? Dylan.
That's all right. E or the A. You were close enough, Dylan. No big deal. All right. Yeah, reminder to the Black Flame 11. I'll send a link out. Yeah, it'll be tomorrow, 8:30. We'll have our monthly call. Like I said, it's just been crazy the last week and a half, 2 weeks. I will try to get on that 8:30. Spread the word to the others and an email. I'll get it out tomorrow. We'll have a call tomorrow. All right. Akpan Faku. All right. Peace, brother. I know we had a good session last week. Hope your daughter's winning that game. I hope she got a triple double. Stop. I hope you guys won. Azariah Infernal, blessings to you too. Infernal blessings. I like that term. I like that. All right. Looking for questions, people. Questions and comments. Harmony 9 Balance. You're speaking so much truth, brother. I appreciate that. Hopefully you and others can utilize this information however you see fit. Remember, all I do is put information out there. Whether you love, like it, or hate it, that's personal. I'm just, like I said, I just put it out there. All right. What else we got? Food manipulator says, I'm trusting you. Talk that shit. All right. Well, trust yourself first there. But I appreciate it. Matthew Watson says, exactly. My afterlife experience is mine, and we all have our own path, even on the other side. True indeed. And again, you come to those realizations through your personal work. And some of it's going to be subjective. Some of it's going to be subjective. Oh, Panthers, man. I'm sorry. I got the hockey game on over here. My Panthers were down 4-0. They just tied it up at 4. It's fucking crazy. Against the best team in the league. There you go. Unbelievable. Little guy's going crazy in there. Fucking amazing. Anyway. All right. What else we got here? Questions and comments. Yeah, I noticed with the time change too, Juju Cakes. It's weird. You know what? I noticed like when they had this daylight savings, whatever they call it, daylight savings time, turn the clock back. I guess I never really paid attention to it so much when I was younger, but I noticed as I get older, there's two things I noticed with it. The fact that, yes, about how it gets dark so early, but it goes to show you how the body gets into biorhythms and patterns. I felt like the first, and I know the body's, because the body's used to the rhythms, I noticed the first 4 to 6 days, it felt like time, like there wasn't enough time in the day, more than usual. Like shit just flew by. Like, I mean, I can't even describe it. Like I would look up, it's like something was out of whack is the best way I could describe it. I noticed as I've got older, I feel that more and more as I've gotten older. But it's crazy. The point, again, when I was talking about that earlier, where do you pull the clock back? Where do you get that 60 minutes from? If there is such a thing as linear time and calculating time, where do you just grab that 60 minutes? Where do you get it from? Where do you take it from? It's not real. It doesn't make sense. Okay. So Knowledge Seeker says, I was just about to research the Hermetica and saw this notification. Oh, that's funny. That's cool. Again, let me put the trend, as I said earlier, just in case people came in late, let me just put it up on the screen. There's many different translations out there containing the works of the Hermetica. So, feel free to explore. But I was using this one by Timothy Frecky and Peter Gandy. This was put out, I believe, in 87 or 97. This is the Hermetica, the Lost Wisdom of the Pharoahs. I have a Kindle version of it on my Amazon. And I will tell you one thing. I recently got this tablet a few weeks ago. This is if I'm sure some people have, plenty of people have. This is an Amazon Fire tablet. This shit is fire. In addition to the regular internet shit, it's got so much shit on here.
I'm hooked on this tablet. I got a Washington Post app on here that's off the fucking chain. But I'm hooked on this thing. Instead of getting a regular tablet this time, I went and got a Amazon Fire tablet off the chain. But that was the book I was using specifically. But again, there's so many books out there with the collection of the Hermetic writings. Feel free. They're all going to have similar in there. I like that one because of the commentary and the breakdown of the teachings in each section is kind of why I gravitated towards that. I looked at a few translations as I was researching them. And I found that to be, it's very simple. It's not, I don't like to get into all that overly complex shit because some of these authors, they too deep for themselves. And that kind of gets to me after a while when you get into these authors that like to use these super big words and they like to use all this heavy philosophy, which is cool if that's your thing. I just like, man, give it to me raw, straight to the point. Bam. Don't cut no corners, no chases. Let's just get straight to the meat of it. And this book does that, just to give you that. All right. Yeah, Harmony 9. I try to be straight to the point again, because when you're straight to the point, you don't have an agenda. Like I say, people that are that fluff shit up and are fluffing it or powder, they usually have an agenda, and they're usually looking for followers, or they're looking, to have some angle, or then they're usually following it up with something that they're coming behind trying to sell you. I don't fuck like that. I don't get down like that. My thing is to just put it out there, and you utilize it how you see fit. Love it, like, or hate it. That's personal. You see fit, but I appreciate it, and I try to be as blunt as I can. Is that style appealing to everybody? No, and I know that, but I can only be myself. That's just the way I am. So it is what it is. If for those listening, if that's not your style or your flavor, then I guess you need to find another channel that caters to that. All right. Yeah, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell after you subscribe. Hit the like button, please, because the more likes the videos on the channel gets, it expands out to more people and it reaches on a wider platform. It'll pop up more and the channel will start to expand and grow with the more likes. All right. Yeah. And a reminder, as Raven put in, the winter class will be coming mid to late January. As I said earlier, if you are not on my email list and you would like information on the winter session of classes that will begin in January, send me an email and I'll add you to the list, but be patient. I will be getting that out in the next week or two. But if you want to be added to that list, just send me an email and title the email class, winter classes. This way I can see that and make a distinction between that. All right. All right. Ichigo Uzumaki. When you talk about the archons, there's a lot of different theories and perspectives on that. When you talk about the archons, I don't know. I mean, I've heard theories where people will talk about they're vampiric in nature and they feed on you. I've heard other people talk about it. They're some form of vampiric race. That's a Greek term too. But remember, only thing that can feed on you is what you allow it. So I don't accept the archons as, they work through the Zodiac and we have no control and they completely feed on us. If that's what we're talking about, no, I don't look at it in that regards. Because again, to an extent, if that is a perspective you accept or a concept you accept, that really can't 100% be proven. So it's personal. Now, when we look at archons and know their place in the role as far as beings or entities, it just depends on how you put them into perspective. But Only thing that can feed on us. Now, if you practice vampirism or utilize that in any shape, form of your spirituality, you would know or be able to understand if that's happening to you on any shape, form, or fashion or any level. And you would be able to adjust accordingly of reversing that energy, for lack of a better word. So I say that to say this. Is there something feeding on us that we have no control over? Absolutely not. If you accept that reality, it's a reality to you because you've accepted it. So no, I don't accept at all in any shape, form, or fashion that we are at the mercy of some beings or vampiric entities called archons, and we have no control over. So no. And even when you tie it back into the Zodiac, as I was talking about earlier, it just gives you an understanding of certain characteristics. It's not the seal of your fate. It doesn't close the door to the complete sealing or fate of your destiny. Absolutely not. I want to make that clear. When we start to accept that as a reality, it becomes real. Okay? So that's my thoughts on that. And I know there's going to be others that might have a difference of opinion on that. And I know the archons, somebody brought up archons a couple months back. I forgot who it was. And we kind of talked about that. All right. All right, what else we got? All right, so Stuffed Dog 69 has a question. I would ask, if one does or doesn't leave a great mark or impact on this place, does it really matter in the grand scheme of things? Yes, it does. Yes and no. And I know that might sound contradictory. Yes, only in the sense that for you personally, it would, within yourself, your work is complete here. In that sense. In the grand scheme of things, no, because you're still going to have to go through that transition state one way or the other. So that's why I say yes and no. But what I'm saying is, for those that you're leaving behind, the legacy or the lack of legacy, and really it's just a completion factor within you that you've left that mark or that impact. Okay. So that, in that sense, now that could be, I mean, that's personal. I mean, you could have a perspective on that, a different perspective or an outlook on it. So that's why I say it's kind of a two-edged sword. But in the grand scheme of things, one way or the other, you are still going to have to go through that transition. So no, in that sense, no. We're all going to have to taste death. We're all going to have to go through that transition stage. We're all going to have to go through that regeneration, renewal, and resurrection process that's talked about in a lot of these mystery schools. That's unavoidable. That's the one thing that's guaranteed in life, that everybody will experience one way or the other, regardless of your spiritual beliefs, regardless of your understanding, your knowledge, etc. The one thing we are all guaranteed is to go through that. And again, our work, our shadow work, a lot of the Klepothic work and working with the Klepothic realm is centered around that. And it's important for us to get a thorough understanding of that. Very important. Very important. All right. But that's a very good question. Okay. Dang. These fuckers are going to another shootout. All right. Yeah, and if I leave a great work behind, I may neglect the great work that's supposed to happen inside. No, but you got to look at that twofold. Well, I think we kind of already answered that. But you got to look at that twofold. When we see, by your example, only thing that when they say leaving your mark here, not that you're living your life to do external things, to leave external marks, meaning your example you set, the way you carried yourself. For an example, so let's make sure there's an understanding of this. Let's talk about your main family. Now, the way you conduct yourself, how you carried yourself, your spiritual practices, whether people agreed with it or not, but by your example you set, they saw overall you were a successful person on a spiritual level, mental level, emotional, physical. In that sense, that's what I mean. Have you left your mark in that sense where people can look at that and say, that's an example of somebody who was successful? Not that you went out of your way externally to do external things in that aspect. No, because in essence, you were still doing what you needed to do for self. So I just want to make that clear, but that's a very good question. All right. All right. So how we utilize all right. So this is from Alicia. So how we utilize the knowledge, good question, in shadow work will be, why as a god or goddess we keep choosing to come back to be lesser than god or goddesses? That could be. Question, this is Angel. Isn't it a fact that ancient people migrated from place to place, and over time ancient beliefs and practices overlapped through various cultures and practices, even through the names changed, but the core of essentials remain the same? Yes, you see that everywhere. You see that, in ancient Egypt, Christianity, as a lot of stuff from ancient Egypt got passed down through Christianity, Samaria, Hinduism. I mean, how many concepts of this Christ figure do we see in cultures that predated Christianity? So yes, long story short, it's a known historical fact that as these cultures get passed, as these things get passed down from culture to culture, as the cultures adapt it, they change the name in their languages. They'll change the stories maybe to fit their customs and their traditions, but you'll see the connection there. So very, very, very important fact that Angel is stating, and I'm sure people who do their research and study have made that connection or should make that connection. But yes, and it's important to have that understanding. Even here with the Hermetica, we saw the influence of how it got passed down. And look in Europe, look in ancient, how Islam used it. But as it got passed down, look how when Islam used it, they changed it because on the surface, they made it look like, for those that may not know, like when you're dealing with Islam mysticism or Sufism, how a lot of it was grafted from the ancient Egyptian wisdom, but you wouldn't know that if you didn't understand the history of it. And that's why I went through the history earlier. I don't know if your question was in relation to that, but that's why I went through the history earlier. To kind of show that. But yes, cultures will take that and they will kind of adjust it to fit their own, to make it. And look, this is how religion was formulated. Let's be real. This is how religion was formulated. They basically, Islam, Christianity, and Judaism took their things from everywhere else. Ah, fuck. God damn. All right. All right. Trying to watch the end of this shootout. There's a good question here. Hoffman needs a fucking goal. Yes. All right. We need to stop here and win this game, man. This will be a huge win. All right. This is a good question by Stuff Dog. Just playing devil's advocate. Don't play devil's advocate. Be the devil's advocate. Let me stop. All right. Does making it to the proverbial top of life really amount to anything spiritual? I found nothing at the top. That's why I'm on this path. All right. So let's. Yes. Them boys came all the way back. Wow. Yes. And again, as you said earlier, I'm going to use that term, the grand scheme of things, no. But let's be real. We live on the physical realm, and I've talked about this. You should strive for yourself, not because you're trying to keep up with society or the Joneses or to keep up with trends and fads and with what everybody else has got. Not in that sense. But because if you have an abundance of knowledge and wisdom, that should translate in some shape, form, or fashion into your mundane existence. So we should now look, is it no. Should it be that you're so materialistic and chasing, those mundane things? No, but you should, to the best of your ability, live the best quality of life you can. Now, I'm not saying you're not. Now I'm speaking in general, but it's a great question. We should always strive to have the best of anything. It doesn't mean, and the best of everything doesn't mean, and this is the important thing to understand. The best of everything doesn't mean you need to be driving the most expensive car, but you should be driving a good, reliable car. Do you understand that? The best of everything doesn't mean you need, if you're a millionaire, billionaire, great, but you should be comfortable and have money. You should be successful. Now, that success is determined based on the type of lifestyle you lead. Now, if you lead a simple lifestyle and you don't need a lot of those things, but you still feel that you're living a successful and productive life, so be it. So that should be determined by your choices and the lifestyle you lead. But we should always strive. I don't believe anybody that's rich in knowledge should be struggling and in poverty. Now, are there certain situations for certain individuals where life deals them tough circumstances beyond to an extent? They're dealt cards for the moment that deals them unfortunate situations that they got to work themselves out of, most definitely. But no, you shouldn't live your life trying to center your entire life at getting to the proverbial top, but you should be successful. So if you have a business, it should be a successful business. If you're working a career or profession, it should be something productive. And we have to make sure, here's the most important thing in that question. We have to make sure we're not using that as an excuse if we're failing in areas of our life. That's my whole point. Now, if you're happy with yourself, and you don't have that stress or that drama, and you live a simple lifestyle, and things are working out for you, then that is success. But if you have all this knowledge and you're in a bad situation and you're struggling and you can't just do the regular things, then that's something that you need to address. There's something deeper at play there. But that's an excellent question. Very good question. All right. All right. Yeah, Azariah Infernal. Actually, I did 2 full videos on your question about Hermetic teachings of mental transmutation. It was not too long ago. If you go into the archives, I did a whole thing on the alchemy for personal transformation, the Emerald Tablets of Tahuti. We talked about different exercises, rituals one can do for that transformation or transmutation. There's a lot of techniques that you can use, but first you have to start with understanding the calcification of your pineal. That has a lot to do with mental transmutation. So I always suggest if people use the Hermetic teachings of mental transmutation via alchemy, it's always good to start with work on the pineal to see, and how you work on the pineal techniques, making oneself less dense, right? And that starts with personal work. Some might call it shadow work because it is shadow work in essence. What are things each individual has to look at themselves and find out what things are weighing them down and making themselves less dense. It could be something we just talked about. It could be finances and struggles and problems. It could be bad relationships they're in. So they could be with spouses that are not the right spouses for them. It could be family problems. It could be deeper things at play that are blocking that mental transmutation, such as childhood traumas, could have been sexual abuse, physical abuse. It could have been being bullied as a child. All these things are things or places where I suggest people to start to make that transmutation. Because to connect on that higher level, the traumas must be addressed, dealt with, and put into perspective. Now, some traumas, again, they're not going to all be forgotten, but you can put them in perspective, such as child molestation. That's a traumatic thing. That'll never go away. But can you put it into its correct perspective and move on and live a successful, productive life? Yes. But if it's a trauma that is blocking you, you will never make that mental transmutation. Again, I know people that I've had clients through consultations and readings that they were bullied as a child, going back when they were 9, 10, 11 years old, and they're in their 40s and 50s now. And psychologically, it still has a traumatic effect on them. These are all things that can calcify your pineal gland, that make you less dense, right? Things that make you dense weigh down on you, right? Stress weighs down on you. How do you know those things weigh down on you and affect you mentally, emotionally, and even physically? Because when somebody is overly stressed, they can have a nervous breakdown. When the central nervous system isn't working on all cylinders, one can start to become what people term as being mentally unstable. So it really starts with, that aspect. So I always suggest start people with decalcification process of the pineal is step one in mental transmutation. If you're going to use the Hermetic system of alchemy and mental transmutation. But for the sake of time, if you get time, it was a few weeks ago, go back in the archives. You'll see a 2 or 3-part series I did on that. And I think it'll address more in detail. All right. Tia D, thank you for making it clear. Well, thank you. I'm glad you're able to see it clear. When you become the light, there is no more shadow. That's true. There's no more shadow in the sense that you understand the shadow, right? The shadow is just a term. All that is just a term when we're ignoring the real self, right? It's an analogy. If you're walking and during the daytime and you're walking past the wall and the sun casts a shadow on the wall, right? That's where that term comes from. It's just a symbolic term. The shadow self is just symbolic for the real you. Because in mystical terms, we find in doing shadow work that most people spend their lives living an illusion. That's all. The shadow, in essence, doesn't have really anything to do with what we term physical darkness. We're talking more on a mental level, ignoring the real self. So what tends to happen is when we strip the illusionary self, and the illusionary self is who you think you are, the illusionary self is who you try to portray yourself. People live their whole lives sometimes trying to portray an image to everybody around them, and that's not even really who they are. So that's what we mean when we say the shadow self. And to us on this path, now you might have a different perspective on it. Who was that question? Oh, damn, where'd it go? James, you might have a different perspective on it, but the light represents the intellect. So yes, when one taps into the light or the true intellect of themselves, that disconnect is removed. Okay. Damn. Hold on. Skip. All right, Alicia asks, the most important thing of all is having an equilibrium between the mind, the spirit, the body, cleansing, charging, and alignment. Yes, harmony is very important. James Gordon. No, I don't. I think you need Jesus, James. I think you need Jesus. We don't need saying somebody needs Jesus is saying somebody needs Santa Claus or Snow White. That's about as real as that is. But if that's your opinion, I think you need Jesus. I don't think anybody in here really cares about that, to be honest with you. All right, what else we got? Matthew Watts, what are some good ritual books that deal with Hermetic rituals to help line up with those energies? Well, I'll give you 2 very good ones. One, I would really, the works of Charles Pace that Michael W. Ford put out, I think 2 or 3 years ago, the Necromingan book. That book from front to back has different Hermetic or Heka rituals in there for that. Okay. Patra says, a question, how to discern when to switch energy? I feel myself growing and becoming aware. Oh, wait, that's good. Okay. Aware of new things. Let me put on these goddamn glasses. I don't know why I keep taking these motherfuckers off. My bad.
Okay. Patra says, I feel myself growing and becoming aware of new things daily, which is causing new energies to resonate with me. How can I determine when to stop working with one and move on? When you feel the urge. That's it. It's that simple. Don't make it more complex than it is. If you feel the need to work with something else, there's your answer. Don't overthink it. I think what you're doing is you're overthinking it. If you just feel the urge to move to something new or something different, or you feel a change, that's how you do it. There is no way, nobody can sit down and tell you, do this for this X amount of time and then switch. No, let your intuition be the guide. Let your intuition tell you that. It's that simple. So when you feel like you've been working with an energy and for the moment you've gotten out of it what you need and you feel it's time to move on to something else, then move on to something else. Don't mean you won't go back to that. It just means it's time to, for the time being, to change to something else. That's it. It's that simple. All right. TD, I have a naturally easygoing nature per my birth. I am a love child. Would engaging dark energies, a left-hand path, be helpful for protection / discernment in these times? I'm very intrigued by it. Well, there's your answer. If you're intrigued by it, explore. And through your exploration and experiences, then you can determine what you want to dabble in and mess with and what you don't. And if there's things that don't resonate with you, leave them alone. Look, it's like food. You don't know a food that you're going to love it or hate it until you try it, right? You could say, oh, I don't want that. It's disgusting. But how are you going to know that until you taste? So I would suggest that you, T or D, if you're not completely familiar with this path and you're intrigued by it, start to slowly, gradually explore, see what resonates with you, and see if you can incorporate that into your personal spiritual path. And if there's things you encounter and you're not feeling or resonate with, just toss it to the side. That's the best way. We call that creating your own path of self-mastery. So I would just simply explore. Take it slow. You don't need to jump all head in right out the gate, but your experiences will dictate which way you should move, how fast or slow, or what pace you should go. All right. So that's the best way, best suggestion. There's really no manual or foolproof method to do it. Exploration, explore. That's the best thing I can tell you. All right, what else we got? Obadiah Desavayu, greetings. Question: when encountering a spirit energy, can you experience physical problems? Yes. Great question. I can tell you this. Now, here's some of the problems that can arise. Now, I want to be careful how I word this. They can be problems only in the sense because we may not understand it. Okay? So what I mean by that is you will find sometimes when you work with energies or spirits, you can get sick. You can feel nauseous. You can throw up. You can get bouts of diarrhea. Yes, and I'll explain. Massive headaches. Your body can feel out of whack. You can feel very drained. That's usually because, now I'm going to talk about that in lingering effects. There's two different things. That's usually because it takes sometimes the body absorbing all that energy, it can become a bit overwhelming. Now, I know when I first started working with the telepathic deities, I was experiencing that in an intense level. I was feeling out of whack. I was feeling just not myself. I was getting moments where I felt like if I was falling asleep, I felt like I was falling into like a black hole, like I was falling back. Every time I would doze off, I felt like it was a weird, like I just felt like I was falling in this deep, dark hole. It's the best way I can describe it. Felt sick, right? Those things can happen. Very normal. They tend to subside quickly in time because as the body, the mental and the physical adapt and adjust to it, that tends to just level itself out, literally. As you become more consistent in your work, you get, like anything else, you get used to it. It's like practicing a sport. It's like learning a new skill or a trade. Once you start doing it over and over, you start to get used to it. Now, there's another effect it can have. If you start opening portholes, dimensions, and doorways to energies that you're not in a sound mind or body to be receptive to, yes, unfortunately, I've talked about this in the past. It can create psychological problems, not just physical problems. It can create psychological problems. And I don't want to say this to spook people out or scare them, but yes, you can open the door if you're not in the right state of mind. Make sure you're in, and when I say sound mind, sound body, if you're in a bad place, you're going through a lot of stressful things and like things of that nature, you're dealing with a lot of personal stuff,
a lot of traumas that you haven't really gotten together yet, I probably wouldn't go about doing ritualistic work, invoking some of these energies, because you're probably not at the moment in a good place to do that type of work. That's where you can open yourself up to lingering effects. And I've got to keep it real with you. In my 20 plus years doing this, over 25 years in doing this, I can think of a handful of people to this day that I know that actually had to be committed to psychic institutes, which fucked them up even more, because family members committed them not knowing what they were dealing with. And then they put them on all these other drugs and shit. And now they're even more fucked up than they were before they went in there. And I got to keep it real with you. That does happen in rare cases. I could probably count on one, maybe two hands in my 25 plus years doing this. Only a handful of people I've seen that happen to. And some were instructed, but they didn't listen. They wanted to be super spiritual and super deep. And they opened themselves up to shit they probably weren't prepared to deal with. You'll hear a good teachers that teach on this path. And there's a handful that come to mind that I can think of will tell their students that. People that have taken my classes, and I'm not just saying that because I'm not telling you, using that as a key pitch to take the classes. Look, people are going to take the classes that are supposed to take the classes, but I go over all that stuff in my classes with people that sign up. I touch on the pros and the cons. When I say this path is not for everybody, it is not for everybody. Not everybody is equipped to be on this path. That's a reality. Okay? So that's part of it, but it's an excellent question. All right. Yes, Anya, it is protection. Yes, the archons, yes. Like I said, work with them more beneficial. I'm not one as I forgot who asked that question earlier. I'm not one that takes on the perception that we're at the mercy of them. Absolutely not. All right. What else we got? I can't even sum up what gravitate towards the content if they needed to be buttered up and sugar coated. True. Yeah, if you're looking for a path that's going to coddle you and, sit you on the lap and go, baby, it's going to be okay, this is not the path for you. If you're looking for tough love to tell you like it is and it is what it is, this is the path for you. This cuts no corners. This is not a look, I keep it real. This is not a Hotepper path, right? This is not, if you want to be a Hotepper, go over to that Hotepper stuff. And look, hey, I like joking around and clowning about it, but I got to call it for what it is. If you want to be one of them Hoteppers and play part-time occultist, then do that. The only person you're fooling is yourself. You can't be that and be this simultaneously. Yes, we use a lot of information from multiple systems, but that's the beauty of this path. We can do this. Those paths can. They have to be exclusive to that because they lay claim to being Hermetic, or this one lays claim to being strictly Ifa and Santeria. Well, the beauty of being on this path, you could be all those things because we don't limit ourselves to a specific title or a dogma or a faith or a philosophy. That's the beauty of it. So we could build on the Hermetic philosophy in the aspect of how we apply it to our path, but we don't have to make the claim, I'm exclusively Egyptian. And then please, people, stop. Just because you connect with Egypt doesn't make you an ancient Egyptian. These motherfuckers out here got to stop this shit. Oh, I'm a direct. You're not a direct descendant of the ancient Egyptians. Stop it. Okay? Just because you may be initiated in Santeria or you study Ifa, you're not fucking Oshun or you're not. Just, please stop. It's fucking nauseating. It really just like makes me want to vomit. These are people that just feel the need for attention. They probably didn't get enough of breast milk when they were being raised. I got to keep it real. These motherfuckers you see walking around with this, all these, I call them conscious blingers. They got on these big ass, super big ass ongs, and they're wearing dashikis, and every day they got to wear kunta kinte cloth, and they got to profess how conscious they are all the time and everything. I'm this and I'm that, and they got to talk about it and show people all that. These are people that need and dire need of attention. They just can't be themselves. They can't just go out can't go out in public just wearing a damn t-shirt and a pair of jeans. No, they got to let everybody know that they're conscious. If it's not something they got on, it's a hairstyle they got to wear, it's a verbiage they got to use. And I love when people go, oh, that person's spiritual. How do you know that? Why? Because they dressed a certain way and they said Hotep. How do you know on the inside they ain't all fucked up, destroyed and rotten and all out of sync? They could look good on the outside, but the inside could be all torn up. So what I'm saying is those are people that need attention or in dire need of attention. So, you know, is what it is. What else we got? Yeah, Blair, if you came in late, yeah, you're definitely going to have to get that playback. All right, I understand everything is a part of me. Just asking about archery because that's what I've heard. No, that's fine. And again, Ichigo Uzumaki, it's a good question. It's just, again, everybody's going to have, I know people that work with the archons on this path. Everybody's going to have a different perspective on it. I've heard that theory, too, about them being kind of vampiric in nature and this and that. And they are, because they are entities or energies. They're part of that pantheon that they thrive off of energy. But all I'm saying is, if you believe you're at the mercy of them and they can suck you completely dry of your energy, and you haven't raised yourself up to the awareness when you're being fed off of, and that's why vampirism, I'm sorry, is a part, one of the paths that's part of this system is important to understand and at least study. You would have that awareness. So that's why I'm in disagreement with that aspect of it. Now, there are those that might accept that. They might feel like they're at the mercy and these archons are feeding off them and there's nothing they can do. I don't accept that reality. I don't care if anybody agrees with it or not. I just don't accept that reality. But it's an excellent question. All right. Anya, we are all very wise. People don't worry about mundane things back then as we do today to keep us distracted. And it's true. It's just times have changed. We live in a society where, you know, technology. Look, back then it was simple. People lived off the land. They lived with nature. We don't live in them times no more. The bottom line is we have to put food on our table, pay our mortgage. And when I was talking about mundane physical things earlier, we want to strive to live to the best of our ability. I'm not saying your materialistic wealth and your finances dictate whether you're successful on this path or not in its totality. Absolutely not. But I would hope that I see in my students in classes and in people I know that are on this path, I get joy in watching them live a successful life. I want to see them at least have a decent house or an apartment, have a nice car, have the necessities for their family, have things that they need. That is what we should at least strive for at a minimum. Now, whatever comes after that is just blessings, period. But you should never settle, whether it's materialistic things or whether it's spiritual things. You should never, ever settle, period. You should always be striving to have the most successful and productive things in all areas of your life. That's what this path is. When we talk about self-mastery, we talk about mastering yourself in what I call the 5 P's of self-mastery: physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and financially. That's the goal. That's why you're on this path. You want to see harmony of success in all of those areas in your life. If you're not seeing them, then that determines what areas you need to focus on more than others. That's the way, this is the way I take students and teach them in the classes. The work is geared towards that. How can I take this information and how can I better myself in this order? Spiritually first. Knowledge of self is the most critical and most important thing. That's step 1. Mentally, addressing the traumas, shadow work, unlocking the divine within, which all is mental. Mental is all. The universe is mental. That's 2. Emotionally, do I have my emotions in check? And is my ego in the right place? Because not all aspects of my ego is bad. So I show them how you work with all aspects of your emotions, how to work with anger, love, lust, hate, greed. All of it is productive as long as you know how to work with it. Hate is not a bad thing. You can hate a toothache. That's not a bad thing. You can hate somebody that harms an innocent old woman. That's not a bad thing. It's how to channel those emotions. So now we got spiritually, we got mentally and emotionally, physically, which I think this is a simple part that we negate. Diet and exercise is important. I also discussed that, and I'll be doing a whole class on that in the next upcoming session. Diet and exercise on the left-hand path, very important, because your diet or lack of exercise could be stunting your spiritual growth. It could affect your meditations, your rituals, your concentration, your focus, because you could be ingesting a whole bunch of artificial sugars, preservatives, and things of that nature that are blocking you. So physically should not be negated. And then the least important, notice it's 5th, financially. But it is on the list. It is a list of necessities. That is your goal. So if somebody asks the question, what's the point of all this? What's the point of talking about all this knowledge, doing all this work, all these teachings, all these different paths, blah, 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 blah. What's the point of it? That's the point of it right there. There's your answer. To master yourself spiritually, mentally, emotionally, physically, and financially. 5 P's of self-mastery. That's the goal. If you're not doing that, then my question would be to you, why you're on this path. This is not a path to escape from something else in reality that you're not dealing with. If you're a failure in those areas in your life and you're trying to come over here and hide and thinking this is going to give you a crutch or an excuse and to run from that, you're fooling yourself. That's all I can tell you. What this is going to do is bring it to the surface more. You're not hiding from it. You're going to, with that resistance, you're creating a stronger persistence. And all your deficiencies and weaknesses will come and bubble to the surface and blow up in your face. Not a matter of if, a matter of when. All right. All right, what else we got? Almost done here. But that's a good point, Anya. Good point. Angel, question. Doesn't spirit contact / possession vary from person to person, entity to energy to entity to energy, degree of consciousness in the person? Absolutely. And I know you typed your question in earlier. I probably didn't get to it. And I answered that earlier. Yes, it depends on the level of understanding and the experience of the individual. Obviously, their experience and their understanding, and obviously, if they've dealt with all the things we've talked about, they've prepared symbolically the vessel, they've cleared the mind or have addressed the traumas, the issues to prepare and get that vessel symbolically clean. So most definitely, it varies from person to person. It varies from degree of consciousness in the person. And that is based on their level of experience, knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. Good question. All right, what else we got? Shit. Skip. Okay, here we go. All right, okay. Oral Roberts show. Wow, he's still on TV. All right, I think we're at the bottom here. All right, I'll take this last question at the bottom. This is a good question. Beast of the Lavatory. What's the link between the archons, vampires, and the goetic demon deities, if any? Is there a specific link? There are similarities and connections. Can we fundamentally, for a factual basis, I think it's a matter of opinion. I don't think anybody, some might say factually, yes, there is 100% connection and link. I can only speak from my perspective. When I look at it, yes, there are similarities. The archons, for an example, they are vampiric in nature because they are an energy that feeds or subsists off other energy. So that makes them vampiric in nature. Now, the goetic or daemon deities, not all of them are vampiric in nature. Now, when you're working with the 72 lords of darkness or the Goetia, then you have the archdemons, the 12 princes of hell. They all have different functions. Some of those command, like for an example, the 12 princes of hell or the archdemons, they command some of the, in the pantheon, they command some of the 72 Goetia. So there's a different symbolicism or connection of how that whole system works. So some of them would be vampiric in nature because they can feed off of and control some of those Goetia. Now, not all the Goetia, I would say, are vampiric in nature. Are there some? Yes. I mean, you can look at several of them. There's a few of them when you really look at them. Andrus, I can go through a couple of them that might have that vampiric connection. And you'll even see them depicted as such when that's just the 72 lords of darkness. So it just depends on how an individual is going to look at it. But when I look at it, yes, there are some similarities and connections with some. But I think the individual has to use proper discernment to see which ones have the connection. If we're going to connect them, Archons, Vampire, and the Goetia, how are those energies similar? It's very easy to see when you look at them based on their characteristics and what they represent, but most definitely not all of them. Is there any definitive fact for 100% certainty that states that? No. But I think an individual with common sense can see some similarities / connections. All right. I'm going to stop there because I probably went a little over than I wanted to. Just a reminder, we'll not be doing a show Thursday due to something I got to do. We'll be back on, as far as Thursday is concerned, back on next Thursday. But we'll be back next Tuesday with another video. I will try to shoot something in between. I keep saying that, but I've just been too busy to do something in between. I'll try to get something uploaded in between this Tuesday and next Tuesday if I have the time. But no video, no class this Thursday, live video. Back on next Tuesday. If you need to, again, real quick, if you need to contact me for the upcoming online winter session of classes, send me an email. And in the email, just title winter classes so I know. I'll add you to the list when I send the full list out. Give me about a week or two. I'll have all that out, and I'll send you the information with the curriculum and how to sign up for the classes. That'll start mid to late January. Remember, we're not doing a ritual at the end of this month. But next month, December 27th, the Ritual of Samael. That'll be Friday, December 27th, 8 p.m. If you need to contact me for a spiritual reading or a consultation, please include in the email the days and times you're available and the time zone you live in, and specify if you want a reading or a consultation. And I will send you the information, and I can find a date and time that works out for both of us. Remember to subscribe to the channel. Hit the like button. It expands the channel. Also, hit the notification bell, and you will get a notification every time we go live and upload a new video. Again, next year's Journey of the Black Adept Conference #3 will be from October 26th to the 28th. So mark that date down so you can prepare. Remember, it's going to be the last month in October. That gives you a full year to prepare, to buy your plane tickets, prepare for the event. We're looking to get some more newer speakers next year. I'll be uploading more clips. You saw 2 short clips that we unloaded from the event. We have a lot more clips and footage that we're putting together so you guys can get a glimpse of kind of what it's all about and see the people that turned out. And hopefully next year, well, I know not hopefully, we will have more people next year for a fact. Hopefully some people that are watching will be able to attend next year's conference and maybe even do a presentation and participate. All right. You know where to reach me. Emails in the description box, khnum19@gmail.com. Everybody enjoy the rest of your week. Have a safe weekend, whatever you do. And we will see everybody next Tuesday at 8 p.m. And we'll be back on next Thursday. All right. Peace.